G'day everyone. Well, it's a different video. I was chatting before to a very good mate of mine about numbers of different things, and we started talking about stereos, so I thought I'd pull it apart. It had nothing to do with YouTube, just thought I'd shoot this, but I just thought it might be interesting to see the inside of one of these again. It's one of these Sony Explode head units. It's quite an old one, probably about 15 years old I guess. It's out of the 99XL, so it's probably made maybe a little bit after that or whatever. So it's a cdxl490x Sony Explode head unit. Never really been a great big fan of Sony, but I found them to be quite good head units, especially these older ones. This is the chassis. It's not really that interesting. Actually, it's a modular construction. Like the CD player sort of plugs into that header on the board. Get decent light. I don't know what the MOSFET IC in the back there is. The capacitors, if you're interested, there's a big Rubicon capacitor in the back, which is obviously, for the incoming 12 volts. There's provisions for things that they've, this either doesn't have or whatever, because you can see in the back there's, no, you probably can't. Yeah, maybe I should bring this into the light. Okay, let's bring it into the light. Let's put it on the bench, actually have a look at it in the light. Yeah, there's provisions for things in there that obviously aren't there. Like you can see there's, symbols for diodes and stuff. Be interesting to try and obtain a diagram for this, but number written on the board if I can get the camera out of the way of the light. Not a real good. There we go, that might be better. It's got a mixture of Rubicon and Sam Young, who I've never heard of, but the quality of these things is alright. I wouldn't say they're the worst or the best. So this is the actual chassis itself. It's not really very interesting. It's got a big heatsink in the back, like this whole back bit's a heatsink. It's got pre-outs and shit. Let's go over to the actual CD player itself. Let's go get that. A lot of the time these things will stop ejecting CDs, and well, generally, and it's not just Sony, it's actually numbers of different brands. Numbers of different brands of those CD players. So I've just got my cleaner out here, and this is generally what I use on things. Methylated spirits, nothing exotic or anything. You don't want to use anything petroleum based because it's just going to destroy the rubber parts and things, so just stick to using metho or maybe contact cleaner, but don't go spraying heaps of stuff around these things because obviously they've got bits in there that you don't want to get covered in crap. So this roller here is the main feed roller, roller, and you can't really see that probably, but you can sort of see on the ends there it's a bit dirty. That's generally why they won't eject CD. So if you've got this tissue here that's clean, don't really use a tissue, but anyway. That gives you a good idea of the crap that builds up on these things, because CDs, you handle them, you get them dirty and stuff. So that's a really good, solution to your CD player eject problem. So carefully rotate the roller around. Some of them won't rotate unless you pull it right apart, but this one will. The roller, you can get it to jump a gear. You're probably not supposed to do that, but the correct way of doing it's probably just comes out. It's actually linked to the chassis, so I'm not going to go pulling it out all the way, but I can pull it up a little bit, which I just did. So that's just a little tip from me. And these things are designed to handle what looks like the edge of the CDs. Now that makes a lot of sense because it's like with movie film. You don't want to handle the image area of the movie film, so they used to handle the edges of it. You should really never use a tissue, by the way, because tissues they're not lint free, and they're just going to put bits of fibres in the actual mechanism. But you can see that I'm getting quite a lot of crap off it. So that gives you a very good idea of how to service one of these. I don't really think lubricating these things is a very good idea, because you need silicon based grease, and I don't think it's really ever a problem. So yeah, that just gives you a good idea of why these things stop ejecting. Also give this part a clean. The pressure plate there puts pressure on the CD, so it's got pressure on this roller. What I'd do, even if you didn't use a tissue like I did, yeah, I mean, if you see any dirt or fingerprints or shit, you know, I'd give it a clean, because you don't want that kind of shit floating around in there, dust and dirt and crap. But even if you didn't use a lint cloth like I just did, which is silly, I'd give it a good blowout. Anything you see on there that's foreign and not supposed to be there, give it a clean off, because obviously you don't want that kind of shit in your CD player. They're very basic the way these things are made. They look really complicated, but I mean, these spring loaded, obviously it makes sense. Don't force it like I just did. So that's designed to put pressure on it. It can be worth lubricating these things. So, you know, get your hands on the proper, it's white grease, or actually this is a bluey colour, but you know, I'd be very careful about what you lubricate. Like, you'd lubricate these pins at the ends and things, but you know, maybe the gears, although they are nylon and they should be self-lubricating. I noticed they do lubricate them in the factory. Got a couple of switches there, obviously to tell the CD player whether a CD is in or out. You know, whether it's going in or going out. But yeah, pretty basic. This is obviously the end the CD goes in, if I can get the camera to sit flat on the bench. It's obviously spring loaded, so it's quite a lot of pressure on these. Now this particular unit, they're quite loud and noisy, these older ones, but they seem to be the most reliable, because I noticed the newer Sony head units, then they're not quite as robust, you know, they don't sound as well made and strong, but yeah, I guess they don't even bother with CD players anymore. Like, you can get these things to pop out, but I wouldn't, you know, because unless you want to disassemble it. Yeah, so make sure you got no lint on the actual rollers. Like I said, I shouldn't have used a tissue, but there you go, I did. Got a bit of crap on there, I don't know what that is, it's not from the tissue. Be careful not to damage these rollers. So that bit of crap's just from the moulding process. But yeah, they're tapered rollers, they look flat, but they're not, so just keep that in mind. That's why the ends were dirtier than the middle, because it's trying not to put pressure on the middle of the CD, because you know, you can't have contact with that, because it'll just ruin the CD's, you know, data service. So that's nice and clean. You can see where the top of the CD's been putting pressure on this skate, I'm going to call it. So don't stress the wires too much. And try and sort of put it together gently. You want to line up everything. So that plastic thing needs to go in there, obviously, at the end there. So yeah, if you're doing it on one of these particular units, just locate that plastic tang inboard of this chassis. You know, do it with both hands. Don't try not to do YouTube videos of this crap, because, well, if you do, just be a little bit careful, because you really need two hands. So there you go, that's getting it back together. And it's a bit hard to see, but if I just hold it up to the light, you can see in there, the camera wants to get out of the way, you can see the skate plate, the black bit up the top, and the grey rubber roller, but there's actually, there you go, you can see the clearance in the middle where it doesn't touch the middle of the CD. So you'll have to pull it apart and clean all the crap off it. So I'll go put it back, I'll go put some screws back in it. I'll actually go get the screws and put it in and on camera. Okay, I've actually propped up the camera a bit, because I don't have my tripod, because I accidentally broke the friggin' thing while I was cleaning out that room, that spare room. So it's fairly basic, pretty obvious where the screws go, but Now I'm going to show you anyway, because if I don't, someone will ask about it. I'm putting a bit of pressure on the screws, on the chassis I should say, on the cover of the chassis, so that to make sure it's actually seated all the way back. Because it sort of helps to hold in, you know, shafts and things. I've got an ATX computer power supply, maybe I should power it up too, after pulling it right apart, and see if it still accepts CDs. It will. I've had one of these apart, well, I've had many of these apart actually. It's better than paying someone to service a head unit that's worthless, because they're... Now tighten it firmly, but don't tighten the crap out of it, because you're only doing it in sheet metal, so you know, you got to use your brains. If you tighten the shit out of this stuff, well, obviously you'll bust it, and you'll end up either repairing it or throwing it in the bin. And more than likely, when you strip these things out, they won't accept a bigger screw than other than that which it was designed to accept. But yeah, I like to do different videos and things, because it gets pretty boring doing car videos for me anyway, all the time. I'm not going to stop car videos, I just want to branch out and do different stuff. I haven't really got a use for this head unit, because it was actually taken out of a car rather than it being for a car, so the screws are very small, like they're minuscule. I can give you a good idea of how big they are. Very, very small. The screwdrivers I'm using are not magnetised. I don't think they are, which is sort of it's a con and a pro. The reason why I don't buy magnetised screwdrivers is because I used to do a lot of work with VCRs, and you couldn't use anything magnetised near the right heads. Well, so that's nice and back together again. So that's the actual unit itself. I'll just get that wallet out of underneath there. Some NEC chips. It's going to be a main chip. It's from Singapore. I'm not going to bother reading the type number out. Maybe you can see that, I don't know. If I can hold it still well enough. You'll just have to turn your heads. There you go. That's the type number of that IC. Well, once you've got your CD player back together, and it's not focused on that, but once you get your CD player back together and all that, it's actually fairly well made. Quite a lot of weight in there. Gears look substantial, and you know, they're fairly thick and stuff like that. But that connector on the board interfaces with this here. It's fairly easy to put together. So you've got to line up without busting anything. You line up this connector in there. So once you get everything secreted in place, I just borrowed the word. Thank you very much, One Pug Life. If you're not subscribed to him, go check out his channel. I find myself using his words a fair bit. So yeah, you got that in place. That's sort of it. Just sits in there, and you've got to figure out which screws going where. The front I actually gave it a wash, because that, you know, dust excluder was quite a bit dirty. But I think the screws that hold that on and hold the face on too. So that, yeah, you can just see that that sort of is right where that is. As for the rest of it, well, I'm pretty sure these screws here what I like to do is to not put the screws in the whole way. So if I bring it closer, you can see the screws. Well, you can't, but yeah, you can see it's not quite in all the way. That assures that everything lines up properly, and you should follow that protocol on everything, including cars. If you've got an assembly with several several screws or bolts or whatever you're dealing with, try not to put all the bolts in and tighten them right down, because you should always make sure that they're all going to thread in first. Now, tighten the screws up firmly, but don't wring the crap out of them, because if you really tighten them a lot, you'll probably strip the thread, then you'll end up scrapping the unit or repairing it. So it's a little bit too small, really should have grabbed the other screwdriver, but that's sort of all we can do for now, because this face, or well, the front cover has to dry out, because this, if I grab this screwdriver, this dust wiper or dust excluder, it's really just to keep dust from just floating in there. That's sort of a bit wet because I gave it a wash in the sink. So yeah, that's all we'll do for now. I never did a teardown video because, well, it's not really very interesting. And more importantly, if you want to know how to pull it apart, it's just reverse of the removal procedure. It's pretty. You will not need a teardown video of one of these things. I'm pretty sure most brands are logical like this is. You know, Sony explode head units with a CD player generally have a screw each side. So one there, one there. This face has, a few screws. You just pull out the screws, you can see. There's one up the top there. Pretty sure that doesn't even hold it on. There you go. Didn't even need to pull that one out. So that screw you don't need to pull out, but just that one and that one hold it on. So, well, we've got the CD player installed and screwed up. Well, screwed on, I should say. So let's install the front of this thing. This camera has CCD shift stabilisation, that's why sometimes I put it down and it's still moving, so if anyone's wondering why. So just click the tabs into place on each side. Two there, make sure they're fully engaged or secured or whatever you like. Take the black screws. There's one I shouldn't have pulled out, but I wasn't actually no, it's okay. It only holds on the this catch, so you don't have to pull that one out. It's not actually on the list of screws you've got to take out, but I did, so oh well, no harm done. Again, do it up firmly, but don't tighten the crap out of it. There's only, I think, 2 screws that hold that front on. So yeah, it's fairly straightforward to get back together. That's it, that's the front secured, bolted on. One screw left, which is this silver coloured one, or gold, whatever you want to call it. Obviously it goes in that hole where it's got the arrow. I'm going to get light right. You can see the arrow, there you go. So, engage these tabs, and this is basically a universal tutorial. All head units are pretty well basically the same, but the tabs, they just sit under the top of that fascia, so just make sure they're engaged. Now it's got these tabs here, they sit like that. So make sure they're sitting like properly on both sides. And that bit sits outboard of the steel side, and the tab with the little notch on it, that actually sits where it is. And apply even pressure, very carefully, sort of click. So that's what you should end up with. The little notch and the hole are actually aligned. There's only one screw that holds the top of it on, which is this one here. So just make sure you don't cross thread it. So that's it. So there you go. That's how you clean disassemble and clean the feed roller of a Sony Explode cdxl490x head unit. So that's the actual job done, and this is the face being installed. So yeah, I still haven't given the face a proper clean, but because it is an old unit, it's, you know, pretty old. But yeah, they're not bad actually. I never used to really like Sony head units. We just thought they were low-end crap and never gave them a look in. I think it's mostly that the real early ones were fairly gimmicky looking, but to be honest, mechanically they're very well made. The later ones, you know, like everything, they're built to a price, but these early head units, if you can find one and you only want a CD player and a decent radio with pre-outs, so it's got the two, they call them rear outs, but they're just pre-outs. If you want a head unit like that, you can probably pick one up on eBay for 20 bucks, and you know, they're a pretty decent head unit really. The back's got a very large heatsink. This is a standardised connector, if I can get it out. I'm sort of trying to do, I need more hands. Be careful with these plugs if you damage them, but this is a standardised connector. Pioneer and Kenwood, Sony, probably many other brands use a connector such as this. That little tab sits over the fuse there, which is 10 amps, which is exactly what it's supposed to have. So yeah, if you get the head unit without this wiring loom, you can pick it up from Super Cheap Auto, Repco. If you're not in Australia, you know, see your local auto parts store, or even see eBay. I can't remember what the name of this plug is, but it's pretty obvious, you can't mistake it. Got to have that notch in the middle. It sits over that, you probably can't see it from there, but it sits over that middle plastic bit. But yeah, there's internationally standard colours for the speakers, and it actually has printed on the wires, or some of the wires, it has what they do. Like, well, some of them they do. Now this one doesn't, obviously, but there you go. Yep, doesn't actually tell you on this one, but some it does. But okay, well, thanks for watching, everyone. Okay, well, got a couple of speakers set up, but don't expect too many tunes out of it, because, well, I don't want to bloody get a copyright strike. So mostly, let's just see if it even powers up now that I've had it completely apart. It will, but we've got a power supply set up, ATX of course, out of some weird ass, I think it was a Dell or a Compaq or something. Yeah, it's a Dell, there you go. These are the specs for the power supply, someone will probably be interested. Yeah, so I've sort of wired it up with some multi-core, and I think they call it jerry-rigged or something, but there you go. The red one's the wire that goes to your accessories. The yellow one's the permanently powered one to give it a memory, keep alive memory, and you know, wire colours for the speakers. A couple of Hyundai XL paper cone speakers. They're not actually that bad. They're not falling apart. So let's see if the unit powers up, or if it goes bang. It's just, it goes into an eject mode. It does that when you power it up. So let's go source. Alright, we've got 2 channels working. Very powerful speakers these. Nominal 20 watts. Not too bad. I was going to say, actually, I was expecting it to say 5 watts. Oh, the gag didn't work. So let's just turn the volume down. Oh, well, select 10 dB. I'm trying to bloody remember how to. No, wrong. Mid, high. That'll do. Balance, fader. There we go. Okay, now let's see if, not the cleanest in the world, but let's see if this CD will actually go in. If I can There you go. More importantly, let's see if it'll eject. So where these. So there you go. Cleaning the rollers of these things can make a huge difference. Whoops. You've got to push it in harder than that. I played the first little bit of it. That'll do you. I do not want a copyright friggin' thing. So yeah. No worries, everyone. So there you go. It works, and it ejects the CDs properly. So if you've got an old head unit that won't eject CDs, maybe you should try cleaning the feed roller in it, and if necessary, lubricating some of the contact points in there. You know, where shafts pass into the case and things. It mightn't be, you know, a bad idea to lubricate it. Very well made, very reliable. Gone up many dirt roads with these head units, and yeah, they seem to tolerate lots of bumps and thumps. Got everything isolated from the bench because the bench is metal, and I know the case of this is earthed, and you know, the case of this goes back to the well, I'm pretty sure it does, goes back to these ground wires. They call them ground on the diagram. But yeah, I just thought I'd isolate it. So there you go. It's just a small little, you know, tutorial on cleaning the feed roller of these CD players. The Pioneer and Kenwood head units are very, very similar in construction. So give it a go. And it mightn't hurt once in a while to get out the old dishwashing liquid and give the CDs a clean in the sink under some warm but not hot water. And just be careful what you actually clean them with, because some things can attack CDs, but I've done it that way and never had a problem. I just use a soft cloth, soft lint-free cloth, and some dishwashing liquid, not heaps. Don't use Windex or anything ammonia based, because it'll ruin your CDs. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and expect more of these videos, because it relates to cars, but yeah, it's just, you know, different.